Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video we're going to be discussing the employment of weapon-mounted lights for home defense scenarios. Then later on we're going to get into a review of two lights that were sent to me by Olight, including their new PL Mini, which is a pretty neat little light. But before we get into that, I want to first explain that I do have some experience and training in MOUT, which is Military Operations and Urban Training, which is now just known as UO or Urban Operations. However, I'm not an expert in it. It's not my primary job in the military, so before making a purchase or a decision on how to employ your light, you should probably discuss this with several other people that have experience in this to get a well-rounded opinion. My opinion is not end-all be-all, and other people might have some pretty good thoughts. Another thing you should consider is, although I do have some experience, the way a fire team, squad, or platoon is going to employ their lights are going to be far different than the way you should in a home defense scenario. You're probably going to be operating by yourself compared to operating in a team, and the enemy capabilities and limitations are going to be far different in each scenario, and they're going to be specific to the layout of your house and specifically what's going on in that situation. So you need to consider all these facts when deciding how to employ your lights. So getting into it, answering the question, how should you employ your lights in a home defense scenario? Now again, this is going to apply differently to each layout of the house or what's going on, but it's something you need to consider before you just go out and buy a light. So a few tips that are generally true for most situations. Number one, keep your light off as much as possible. So most lights have a momentary on switch, which is a switch that you can hold down, it turns the light on, and then you let go and it turns off. That's going to be money. So if you find yourself having to defend your home, number one, you want to stay barricaded, obviously. But a lot of folks have loved ones, children that they need to go grab that are in other rooms. So if you have to move to their room, move quickly to their room, grab them and barricade yourself once again. When you're clearing rooms, this isn't going to be a class on how to clear rooms. However, a couple of tips. That momentary on switch is going to be your best friend. As you come into the room, you're going to turn that on, very quickly scan the room, and turn that light off. And you're going to do that for a few reasons. Number one, that's going to help you ascertain if there's anyone in the room. If there is anyone in the room, it's going to apply a very short and minimal blinding effect to them. So if their eyes have adjusted to the darkness, suddenly it's going to be bright. It's going to be hard for them to see. Then you want to cut that light off, because if you leave it on, they're going to have a point of light to go attack. So if you've blinded them very quickly, you've turned that light off, now they don't really know what's going on. Obviously, if you see the person, keep the light on them while you figure out if you need to shoot them or not. Hopefully you don't. Again, if you've barricaded yourself, keep that light off for a few reasons. Number one, if you're aiming it at the ground, some people have white carpet, white walls, light colored walls. It's going to reflect that light, and if there's something like a getaway driver outside or more than one person, they're going to be able to see that light and let their buddy know. So those are just a few things that can help you keep you safe if you're having to clear your house, which you should never have to do. A few other things, these are just some of my opinions. I don't necessarily like the feature of the strobe, so there's no one behind my camera. So a lot of lights have this feature where you can turn it on and it strobes, and it's supposed to be a little bit disorienting to whoever you're shining that light at. However, I don't like it for a few reasons. Number one, it has the same effect on you. So if you're used to the darkness and you kick that light on and it's strobing, you're going to be a little bit taken aback by that as well. And secondly, if you've ever been at a crazy rave or dance party, it's hard to see what people are doing when that light's shining. So if you've just come up on someone you don't know who's in your house and you start strobing on them, you can't tell if they're reaching for their waistband as easy as you can if you just leave the light on, because you're going to see their hand go from here to here to here instead of it smoothly going down. So it's a lot harder to ascertain what their intentions are when they're in your house. It might just be some drunk guy that doesn't know where he is, and I wouldn't want anyone to get injured because you can't tell what's going on because of a strobe. Also, it's not necessarily that effective. If you've ever had a strobe light just shine in your face, it's a little bit debilitating, but like, let's be real. If you're on meth or crack or whatever and you're looking for drugs, that's probably not going to stop you. So those are just a few things to consider. Obviously, there's a whole myriad of topics we can talk about when talking about engaging people with lights and weapons in a home defense scenario. Obviously, not end-all be-all, definitely talk to other folks about it, but a couple of topics that I've seen brought up a few times and a couple of questions that have been asked from viewers like you. So now we'll get into the review. So Olight sent me a couple of lights. I let them know I'm going to give you my honest opinion. I don't care if people want to sponsor content. I'm still going to review things honestly, and if the light sucks, I'll let you know. Luckily, it doesn't seem to be the case, which is nice. However, there are a few things that I would like to see improved on these lights, and there are a few things that are pretty awesome. So I'll bring the camera up, we'll take a closer look, and we'll just talk about a couple of things you should be looking for. Now, before we get into the review, I'm going to talk about 3 requirements that you should consider before purchasing any weapon-mounted light. These apply to all models, not just these 2. Number 1, it needs to mount to whatever weapon you're going to purchase, or whatever weapon you're going to use it on. A lot of people overlook this, get their light, and then are disappointed when it doesn't work. Number 2, it needs to have that momentary on function that we were talking about, where you hold the button down, light turns on, let go, light turns off. Third, finally, you need to be able to hold on to the weapon and use the light with your reaction hand. You don't want to have to use your trigger finger to work that light, because when you're under stress and you need to shoot somebody, you don't want to have to fuck with the light when you should be pulling the trigger. So now we can talk about some of the pros and cons of these specific models. Overall, I feel like they're pretty solid, but there are some things that I could see improved on both of these lights. We'll start off with the Mini. Number 1, the mounting system is outstanding. It's very similar to an RCO if you guys ever use military hardware. You pull that little paddle, it slides on, and it locks on. Both these lights use the same system, and as you can tell, it's very sturdy and it's not going anywhere. Number 2 on the Mini, I really like the charging. So it comes with a pre-charged and rechargeable battery, which is really nice compared to some of the other models where you have to go purchase 123 alpha batteries, which are common in the light world but not so common in the real world. So that's something where the Mini actually overtakes the PL2 Valkyrie. This uses the 123 alphas. Very easy to access. They're easy to find. However, it is just nice to be able to have that rechargeable light, especially if you're like me and you forget to change the batteries on these guys. And then moving on to the buttons, this is the first issue I run into with the Mini. It has all the functions that I need, however the buttons are very tiny. You have to push down on them instead of to the side, and they don't have a positive feedback. So if we compare that to the PL2 Valkyrie full size, you can tell it clicks as I push it, and I get to push to the side instead of pushing down. So the reason why that's an issue is because if I mount this onto a handgun, as you can tell, very easy, I have to break my grip in order to push this down. I have very small hands as well, really dainty hands, so pushing down lowers my grip on the weapon. It's not a major deal, but I would like to be able to push to the side like I can with the full-size Valkyrie. The buttons are also kind of tiny, which may be a little bit difficult to reach and manipulate when you're under a little bit of stress. Now moving on to the PL2 Valkyrie, I really like the output of this light. It is incredibly strong, 1200 lumens, 14,000 candela. It's not necessarily great in every application, however it is something that makes this light a little bit unique. Now improvements, I would like to be able to adjust the beam strength and the focus length of the beam, however it's not available on this option. It's nice and lightweight. I think it's 3.8 ounces, don't quote me on that. However, it's really not something that gets in the way, and it fits naturally on most models of weapons, of handguns rather. So if we compare the two side by side, we've got 400 lumens and 1,300 candela from the Mini, and compare that to 1,200 lumens and 14,000 candela from the PL2 Valkyrie. Now don't get confused, that doesn't mean that the PL2 is going to be better than the Mini, it just means they're better in different applications. So with the Mini, you're going to want to use that in something like a home defense scenario, where you're going to be at close quarters, where you don't want the overall power of the center or concentration of the center being the candela to overwhelm the target and wash it out and maybe get some reflection in your eyes. So this is a good one to use if you want to illuminate a room. You have that wide circle of overall illumination where you can get into a room and really check out what's going on. Now if you compare that to the Valkyrie, the full-size PL2, you can tell the fully illuminated circle is much smaller, but that beam concentration is a lot stronger. So we're talking 14,000 candela, which is a lot higher, rather 10 times higher than the PL Mini. So this is going to be good for your longer range engagements, such as being a police officer, being outside, needing to see a target that's a little bit farther away. This is going to be the option for you. This one also has a strobe function. Again, I'm not a major fan of it. However, it is something that a lot of folks like, so it's something to consider if you're looking at this light. Now both of these are priced pretty reasonably, especially compared to some of the higher end lights that are on the market today. Both of these look like they're pretty solid quality. From what I've seen, I haven't had any issues with these, and they perform basically on par with every light I've used so far in both my civilian and military career. Okay guys, so today we had the opportunity to talk about weapon lights, their use in home defense scenarios, and then we reviewed a couple of lights from Olight. So let me know in the comments what you guys like to use for home defense or for work if you're a police officer. And thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you next time.